My best friend drugged me at a party and assaulted me. I, 14 female, went to my friend's 16 male birthday party. When I arrived he handed me a can of Coke and I drank it not realizing that he had put something in it. I woke up on top of him only wearing my panties and him rubbing me. I jumped up and got my clothes on and ran to my house. I explained what happened to my parents and they accused me of doing drugs intentionally. I don't know if he made love with me or not, but I'm afraid that if I go to the police they won't believe me as one of my relatives had a similar situation happen and the police didn't believe her. My parents took away my phone as punishment, so I can't call the police and they won't let me leave the house. I'm scared and I don't know what to do. Update, my best friend drugged me at a party and assaulted me. I read all of your comments and snuck out of my house to go to the hospital to have the rape kit done. It turns out that he did make love with me that night and they found drugs in my system, although I don't remember the name of it. I reported my ex-friend to the police and, based on the drugs in my system matching some that he had hidden in his room and all of the DNA they collected from me at the hospital, they were able to arrest him. My parents found out, but haven't apologized for blaming me. Thanks for all of the helpful advice I received. My 20 female boyfriend, 20 male, said that I was embarrassing him while I was giving birth to our baby. We have been in a relationship for 1 year and we had a baby boy last week. I had a natural birth and my boyfriend was there throughout the whole process. I screamed a lot and each time I did he whispered something like, "Can you stop screaming? You're embarrassing me." I also threw up a few times and I saw him cover his face in shame. When I held the midwife's hand for comfort he whispered, "Let go of her. Stop being so embarrassing." He also said that my birthing position was embarrassing and called me a few vulgar names. I'm upset about his behavior that day, especially when I needed his support the most. When I try to talk to him about it, he denies ever saying it and that I'm being silly. Update, my 20 female boyfriend, 20 male, said that I was embarrassing him while I was giving birth to our baby. I spoke to my mum, who recommended couples counseling, and if that didn't work then I would be allowed to live with my parents. I then approached him when he came home and gave him an ultimatum. I told him he can either continue to ignore that he acted horribly during the birth and other numerous times, or he can admit to how he has treated me and apologize and get counseling. But he continued to gaslight me and got extremely angry to the point where he was screaming at both me and the baby. He ended up storming out to his best friends. My mum came round after he left and said he's a butthole, and even though she doesn't agree with single parenting, she thought anything would be better than staying with him and enabling his behavior. He has tried to visit me and the baby since, as he guessed I was at my mum's. Both my mum and I have told him it's over and that we're leaving the rest down to the courts. I will be telling my solicitor everything so who knows what the custody arrangements will be. I'm just glad that myself and my baby are out of there and I can finally enjoy being a mother. Yesterday I went shopping and bought what I wanted instead of what he wanted, and I never felt so free since before I met him. To many people, that will sound ridiculous, but quite frankly he controlled every single aspect of my life. However, I'm planning on going to therapy as I feel like the bad experience I had at my birth as well as his abuse in other areas has left a profound effect on me. I also called a few domestic abuse hotlines and they gave me some brilliant advice. Thank you to whomever it was that sent me those. What was weird was the best friend he went over to see contacted me yesterday to say how happy he is to hear that I'm leaving him. He said he noticed how unhappy he made me and how disrespectful he is around women as a whole, and that the abuse didn't exist just towards me, but to his colleagues also. So it's good to know that I have a few people on my side. No doubt things will be constantly changing from now until the foreseeable future, and I'm terrified. But the main thing is that I'm away from him and I and my son are safe, and that I'm feeling empowered enough to know that the way he treated me was 100% wrong and that he will pay the right price as long as I fight for it. My sister and brother-in-law won't let me kiss my boyfriend. I, 30 female, have agreed to carry my sister's 42 female baby for her as she is unable herself and lacks the financial resources to pay a surrogate. I'm happy to do this, or at least I was. I'm 6 months along at the moment, and I met a lovely man recently, and we are in the early stages of a relationship. He knows about my situation, and is very accepting and considerate. Before agreeing to carry their baby, we had some firm rules placed. They asked me to stay away from any sexual contact with men. I agreed, and I really didn't mind, nor do I mind it right now. The agreement was no love making of any kind, and I have not done anything with anyone as was agreed. A few days ago I introduced my new boyfriend to my sister and brother-in-law, and at first, everything was great. They invited us for dinner last Saturday. We had a great meal and a great time together. They all seemed to get along, that is, until he had to leave. When my boyfriend had said his goodbyes to my sister and brother-in-law, he then came over to me and hugged and kissed me, quite passionately, but not in a vulgar way, nor was it for a long period, literally seconds. As soon as he left, my sister and brother-in-law jumped down my throat talking about how I broke the rules, how disgusting and wicked I am. I genuinely was shocked. I had not expected such a blowout or their irrational behavior / feelings towards me for just getting a kiss. I decided not to argue or even go in conversation with them and just walked home. I live about 30 minutes walk away, and by the time I got back home I had an email waiting for me. The email contained our original agreement, but now it included a section with no kissing of any kind, and they want me to sign the new agreement. I don't want to, as I have been more than accommodating and considerate of all their original request. I feel like they are now crossing boundaries and acting as if I'm some kind of farm animal they own and control. I don't want to create any further animosity between us. They have been calling and texting me since then, and I have yet to answer. I would like to reply via email so that there can be no confusion and to create some separation. Any advice on what to write would be great. So how do I reply to their email without being rude? Or how do I deal with them in general? Edit 1. They did offer to drive me home, but I declined as I enjoy walking, and at the time it is my only way to comfortably exercise. The baby is biological, my sisters and brothers-in-law. This child is made from her last and only viable egg. They had tried many times before, but they all failed. So I understood their anxiety and worry when we originally made the first agreement, and I viewed it and still view their initial request as acceptable. I wasn't in a relationship at the beginning of all this, and they were worried about potential STI, and I understood, and I was already taking a break from lovemaking and men at the time. I'm doing this completely for free and without any reward other than helping my sister have her first and only biological child. Edit 2. I've decided to send this as a response. Dear sister and brother-in-law, I'm truly shocked and saddened by your reaction to my partner kissing me, and with your continued behavior. I'd like to remind you that I'm a human being, an adult, and your family. I'm honored to carry your child and to help you as best I can. However, I insist on being treated as a person and not an incubator. I can understand both of your worries and irrational thoughts, as this is your last attempt for a biological child. I truly empathize with you and want you to have your beautiful family. This is why I've agreed to do this completely for free with the restrictions that we've originally agreed to and set. I have been nothing less than compliant and considerate of your request. I have upheld my side of the agreement. I have kept my word and upheld my responsibilities towards the baby and yourselves. However, instead of being beyond grateful, you two have decided to stop respecting me, so much so that you now feel yours in a position to make any demands of me, instead of treating me as the kind and very generous sister I'm being. I love you, and I love the baby I'm carrying for you. I would never ever do anything to harm the baby or cause any disruption to a healthy, successful pregnancy and birth. I will, therefore, under no circumstances, sign the new agreement, as I do not agree with it. However, I do demand you both take a step back and try to look at this all rationally. I fully understand your anxiety around the baby, given the struggles you've faced. I feel for you greatly, but that does not mean you two get to treat me in this manner. The stress and distress that you two are causing me are far more damaging to the baby than any kissing between my partner and me. Again, I ask you to rethink what you're doing, and if you are not capable, I will have to start distancing myself from both of you until after the birth of your child. Lovingly, your sister. Edit 3. I live in the Marshall Islands and we have zero COVID-19, and so their worry wasn't coming from fear of me / baby contracting it. They are paying for all medical expenses and any expenses that come with the pregnancy. They just aren't paying me as a surrogate. The cost for a surrogate here can vary from $50,000 and $120,000, and it's not unusual to pay way more than that. Update: my sister and brother-in-law won't let me kiss my boyfriend. I sent that email and my lawyer, who reached out to Fizz to arrange a meeting to go through our contract, discuss the current issue, and to re-establish boundaries. However, my sister decided to come over today to discuss things before our meeting. After a long talk, she apologized to me and told me that her husband got in her head because he believed that if he was kissing a woman like that, then surely they'd do more or plan on doing more. My brother-in-law got into my sister's head by believing I would have made love with my boyfriend because, and I quote, "no man can last that long without, and why would a man willing choose a pregnant woman, let alone one who wouldn't make love with him?" So, of course, she's making love with him. Their main worry was that he might have an STI and possibly transfer it to me and hurt their baby. After our talk, I did accept her apology, but I also requested distance for a little, while as it does hurt that they would be that ungrateful and irrational to have acted so terribly towards me. My sister and I normally get along very well, and this is our first time falling out. Normally she is my rock, and this was their first time crossing the line. But I guess anxiety and fear can make people act insane. Just to clarify some things, the reason why my sister and brother-in-law asked me is because I had been a surrogate once before and already have 2 children of my own. During my first surrogacy, I delivered to healthy children for a Chinese couple who paid me more than handsomely for the pregnancy and my milk. I had never intended to carry another child after my surrogacy, but I had watched my sister and brother-in-law struggle for many years, and with many failed attempts. At the time that they asked me for my help, they had already spent at least $500,000 on one failed surrogacy, several failed IVF attempts, and fertility specialists. They simply couldn't afford to try again. This is why I agreed that they would pay for all medical expenses and other bills relating to the pregnancy, clothing, rent, bills, food, pregnancy aftercare, but not for my actual time. Our surrogacy contract is legally binding and enforceable if I deviate from our agreed terms in terms of a fine. They assumed that kissing was included in the contract and believed I was in the breach, which is why they flipped out on me at dinner. Our contract is 120 pages, and I guess they forgot that kissing wasn't included. The no love making rule was added as I was practicing celibacy at the time, and I had no issue and still don't have issues with continuing it. I also practiced celibacy during my last surrogacy as the Chinese couple I was carrying for requested it, and they were willing to pay extra for my celibacy, including extra pay for regular STI testing, and extra pay for every day I use their pre-approved nutritional plan. Couples who do pay for a surrogate can ask of the surrogate during negotiations for nearly anything that is considered reasonable and or the surrogate willingly accepts. Lastly, I'm all for pro-choice and believe in a woman's right to choose, but you can't legally abort a baby at 6 months as it is a viable baby. It is a premature baby that can live outside of the womb. Also, what a ridiculously cruel thing to do to the baby, yourself, and the parents. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit like, get subscribed, and give the OP any advice you have in the comment section, and support the original writers with upvotes. Links in the description box.